Okay, so my first lesson is for math. I would get the students' attention by saying, okay, class, today in math, we have been learning about what? I would give them the cue to respond in unison, and they should respond with fractions. And I would say, very good. Yes, fractions, and what have we learned about those fractions? And I would like them to respond in unison with the numerator belongs in the top, the denominator belongs in the bottom because of our previous lesson. And I would ask, and what or how do we know what or where the denominator or what belongs in the denominator? Excuse me. And I would like them to respond in unison. The denominator means down, so it's on the bottom, it's in the down position. And I would say yes. And if we look at this model, and I would have a model on the board, and I would say, how do we know what part goes in the denominator? I would ask the kids to discuss it with their table partners for approximately 20 seconds, give or take, depending on how quickly they would. And after I give them the appropriate wait time, I would call on a student. So I would say something like, now, Jax, what did you and your table come up with? And the response should be something like, 8 would be in the denominator. And I would ask, how do you know that the 8 belongs in the denominator? And his response should be something like, there are 8 total pieces in the model, therefore they should have 8 in the denominator because it's the total amount of pieces. Now, how do we know what goes in the numerator? And the kids, I would like them to respond in unison, so I would give them the prompts to respond in unison. They should respond with, those are the parts or portions shaded or that have been taken away or eaten, or however the question may ask, that goes in the numerator. Next, I would ask students to grab their whiteboards, and I want them to practice some of these, and then I would explain to them that I'll have models up on the board, and I want them to write the fraction for each of these models. And then as soon as I see that everyone is done writing, unless I have a student who's really struggling with it, then I might go over by that student to try and help them out. And I would ask them to show me their answers, but not to discuss them with the other classmates or their table partners. Excuse me. So I would go through probably a couple of modeled problems just to see if they were understanding that. So that would be an example of a math lesson I might do, followed by independent study time. I chose to do a social studies lesson for my second lesson. So I would usually begin with something like, class, let's go ahead and get our social studies books out to start learning more about our states. I would ask, how many states do we have in the United States? They should respond in unison after being prompted with 50. I say, yes, good. And how many capitals? And they should respond with 50. And there is one special capital for the nation, which is, and I would want them to respond with Washington, D.C. And I would say, yes, class, very good. Next, I would say, now, why or what is the purpose of each capital? And I would ask them to discuss this with their table partner for approximately 10-20 seconds, depending on how the class is going. And then I would ask a student to answer for me, and I would say, okay, McKenna, what did your table group come up with? And the response might be something like, the capitals serve as the meeting place for government officials for the state, or however she may have worded it. And I would say, correct. Now, why would this be important, Jay? Calling on another student to respond. And I would want something like, it is important because each state law has regulations to follow, or each state has laws and regulations to follow. They also meet to discuss important rules or laws, however the students may respond with that. And I would say, yes, good, very good. Now I would like you to all get your computers out and get on Google Classroom to review the states, their capitals, and their key facts for the states that we have already learned. Remember to click on the Shepherd software link, and then students would go ahead and be prompted to get out their computers and practice the states that they have already learned. And as the students are practicing, I would go around and watch each student and monitor, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if there's students who are struggling or have questions, they would be able to ask those questions as I am going around the room.